Yeah, I'm going to record the whole thing. All right, so we're recording this meeting now. We'll go ahead and get started. See if a couple other people join in. I'm going to go over what I posted today, a video today, and we're going to talk a little bit more in depth about it. And if you guys have questions, you can ask them. And you can, of course, watch the video again, and I'll probably even post that video using Edpuzzle so you can watch it one more time and sort of take a quiz while you do it. I'll probably do that later this week, along with some other resources for you guys to practice conjugating. So here's really one of the most important parts of learning Spanish, especially if you're an native English speaker, is conjugation of verbs. You can conjugate verbs. I'm doing it all the time. We do it all the time. I did the conjugation. That's past tense. We do it all the time. That's present tense. Do is present tense. I said we do. You do. I do. He do. Do I say he do?
No, he does.
No, I say he does. So watch this is how I teach it in class. Watch, can y'all see my screen as well? Excuse me, you can tell I was painting today. I do. You do. He does. We do. You all do. They do. There are the 6 different conjugation. Like if you see a conjugation chart, which I completely hate conjugation charts, because if I talk to some little Mexican kid in Mexico right now and I say, hey, what's the third person singular form of hacer? They would look at me funny. What are you talking about? Just like if I ask you, hey, what's the third person conjugation of to play, you would be like, what are you talking about? You don't even know. But if I say, Billy, play baseball today, does that make sense? You'd, of course, say, no, that doesn't sound right. You can hear things and you know if they sound right. And that's really what we're after. So what I'm doing in teaching you this right now, the lesson that I'm teaching you today, and that's kind of why I've really given you 3 lessons in one. In a 15-minute video. And I did that purposely because I would rather spend less time talking about the rules and more time practicing it so you can hear it and you know if you're doing it right. So that's really what I'm after. But I still do kind of have to teach you this stuff because you already know an English language. And so this is the way that it's taught really around the world when you're teaching Spanish. You teach it like an English class where you're learning parts of speech and that kind of thing, not just learning how to be fluent. So trying to take less time on this part, the boring stuff, and more time on the practice. But here it is. We're going to get to practice as well. So when you're conjugating verbs, first of all, these verbs are present tense, indicative mood, regular verbs. Present tense, not past tense. I play baseball, not I played baseball. That would be past tense. I play baseball. Not I will play baseball. That would be future tense. So these are present tense. They're the indicative mood. In Spanish, there are 3 moods. There's the indicative mood, which is used for statements and questions. There's the imperative mood, which you use for commanding people to do something. Play baseball. So if I said play baseball to somebody, that's different than saying I play baseball. I'm telling someone to play baseball. So that's a different mood. That's the imperative mood. We may or may not get to that in this 10-week class. It just depends on how well everything else goes. And then these are also regular verbs. They're not irregular verbs. Irregular verbs don't follow the same nice, neat patterns. They're irregular. But the majority of verbs, I would say probably 70% of verbs, are regular verbs, which means they follow this pattern. So in English, I'm not going to spend too much time on this. Here's the conjugations in English. You already know that. Here's Spanish. Ready? You've got 3 endings of verbs: AR verbs, ER verbs, and IR verbs. The verbs you learned this week, the Quizlet verbs that you guys spent time on this week, were either AR verbs, ER verbs, or IR verbs. Let's take it. Well, we won't take a look at those. You'll see some in a minute. Here's a bunch of examples of the verbs that we used. Contestar, llegar, comprar, limpiar, cocinar, cortar, bailar, decidir. See how that's an IR verb? Describir, that's an IR verb. Beber, comer, those are ER verbs. Entrar, terminar, ayudar, saltar, aprender, escuchar, buscar, necesitar, abrir, practicar, etc. These are all verbs, and you can tell they're verbs because they end in ER, AR, or IR. Now, there are some words that end in AR or ER or IR that aren't verbs, but there's not many. A word like lugar, I don't know if you learned that in previous vocab lists, but lugar, Lugar, means place. El lugar, it's not a verb. It looks like one, but it's not. All right, so these are called verbs, and this is how you learn them. You learn them in their infinitive form, which means they're not conjugated yet. In English, an infinitive form of a verb, you just say to in front of it. To run, well, let's do this. To answer, to arrive, to buy, to clean, to cook, to cut, to dance, to decide. That's how you would say all of those. And then if you wanted to say I answer, we arrive, they buy, you clean, she cooks. Notice in English you don't do much to conjugate it. In fact, the only thing you do, if you notice in the singular, is you add an S to the end of it. You add just an S to the end of the verb if you are conjugating in English. So in English, there's not a lot of stuff you do to a verb to conjugate it. In Spanish, there's a ton. Here's what you do. In Spanish, if you want to say I help, you take the AR off and you put an O on the end of it. Yo ayudo. Yo ayudo. If you want to say you help, you take the R off and you put an S on the end. Tu ayudas. So if I say ayudas, if I ask a question, Brian, I say ayudas mucho, I'm saying, do you help a lot? Notice I didn't even have to say the word do. I just say ayudas mucho. And it means, do you help a lot? It takes 4 words in English, but only 2 in Spanish to express that statement. And the reason is because you don't have to state the subject when you're conjugating verbs, because the verb kind of tells you who the subject is. All right? So in Spanish, you don't have to say yo. I could put parentheses around this. I didn't want to take up the space, but you can put parentheses around it because you don't have to say yo. You could just say ayudo, and based on the context of the statement, you know what that word means. Okay? So you'll also notice, however, because of the conjugation, sometimes you see a word that you've seen before, and you're maybe wondering, well, I thought como means like. Well, como does mean like, but it also means I eat. So how do you know which one it is? You know because of the conversation that you're having. The context of the conversation will tell you what that word really means. So you really have to pay attention in the conversation, which is hard for people that aren't fluent yet, but once you get the hang of it, it's really not a very difficult thing to do. You can speak and use less words and really be much more concise. So again, let's go through the conjugate. Sorry, let me stop. I'm saying a lot of stuff. Questions about anything I've said so far? Ask away.
Mr. Dwyer, I know this is way off topic, but for the Quizlet thing, is there a way to slow, like sometimes I don't understand what the person is saying speller on Quizlet because she just goes so fast. So I was wondering if there was a way you could like slow her down.
Yeah, did you already have it on the slow?
I don't have it on.
Yeah, there's a toggle for that. The Quizlet has changed probably since you've used it in school. So let me show you an example. If I go to this and I go to spell, and you have to go to the options.
I do that.
All right.
Go to options and then there's slow. It says normal and slow.
Okay.
I do that.
And they say it a lot slower if you do that. So it's in the options button, which it used to be right on the Quizlet page when a few months ago, but they've updated and they don't call it speller anymore. They call it spell, which I still haven't got used to yet either.
All right, thank you.
Yeah, no problem. Anyone else have questions before I go on? Don't be shy. Are you following what I'm saying about conjugating? Andy, you with me? Tammy, Brian, any questions?
Nope.
All good? Tammy, all good?
She went to go hide the cat. He's causing problems.
Cat, what a troublemaker. All right.
El gato needs to go.
El gato. Ayuda con el gato. Help with the cat. Ella ayuda con el gato. She helps with the cat. There we go. We just conjugated a verb. All right. So back to this. So AR verbs, ER verbs, and IR verbs. You'll notice AR verbs, ayudar, it's o, as, a, amos, whoops, amos, ice, on. O, as, a, amos, ice, on. So yo ayudo, I help. Tú ayudas, you help. Billy ayuda, Billy helps. Nosotros ayudamos. Vosotros, and we're not going to focus too much on vosotros because they only use that in Spain, but vosotros ayudáis and ellos ayudan. Again, I'm not going to spend too much time talking about subject pronouns right now. There's a little bit of some nuances with like Spain using vosotros and Mexico uses ustedes, and I'll explain that later or post a video later. But for now, let's just focus on how you conjugate verbs in the present tense. Comer is an ER verb. Look at the difference. Como, see how it's similar to ayudo? Ayudo, como. I help, I eat. Comes, see the ending? You take the R off and you put an S on the end of it. So if I wanted to ask you, comes la hamburguesa? Comes la hamburguesa? Are you eating the hamburger? Now notice I didn't have to say, are you eating? I just said, you eat the hamburger, and that means the same thing. Comes la hamburguesa? Or I can say, ella come el pan. She eats the bread. Ella come el pan. Or I can say, yo como el cereal. I eat the cereal. Or mamá y yo, mamá y yo comemos en la casa. We eat at home. Or mis amigos comen durante el día. My friends eat during the day. See how I'm conjugating the different verbs? So AR verbs, ER verbs, IR verbs. IR verbs, the only difference between ER and IR are the we and the vosotros form. You know, those two forms are different. O, es, a are the same. O, es, a, it's comer and abrir. But then for we open would be abrimos. Abrimos las ventanas. We open the windows. Notice I didn't say a subject in front of that. I just said abrimos las ventanas. And because I said imos at the end, you knew I was talking about me and some other people with me. I could say nosotros abrimos. Nosotros means we, but I could just say abrimos la ventana. All right, in Spain, you'd say abrís. If you were talking to a bunch of people, like a class, if I was talking to a class, and I want to say, you guys, let's see, did you open your books? I would say abrís los libros. Did you open your books? Okay. If I was in certain parts of Spain, I could say it like that. Otherwise, I would just say abren ustedes los libros. Did you guys open your books? All right. Questions about that? Should we jump straight to the examples? Let's do it. I'm gonna turn off the share real quick because I gotta fix something in this. Or do I? No, actually I don't. I'm gonna present it though. And now I'm gonna share my screen again. I think. All right, you ready? See if I can do this. All right, you see my screen again? All good?
Yeah.
All right, here we go. Let's practice these. If you already watched the video, you probably already know it, but we're gonna practice. Sorry, I'm having a hard time with the control panel for GoToMeeting. All right, here we go. We're going to practice these. I answer, Johnny, I know you know this, so I'll start. Contesto. Or I could say, yo contesto. So your verbs are right there for you. Shouldn't be too hard. Tammy, or I'm sorry, Johnny, we arrive. How do you say we arrive?
Nosotros contestamos.
Very good. No, oh, sorry, arrive. No, that would be we answer. How do you say we arrive? Llegar is to arrive.
Oh, sorry. Nosotros llegamos.
Okay, good. When a double L, you pronounce it like a Y. Llegamos.
Oh, okay.
Now, I have a little bit of I learned my Spanish in Argentina, so I actually say it like a J almost, llegamos, because that's how they say it there. They've got like a little bit of an Italian accent, and it's hard for me to get rid of that. I try not to do that, but when I start speaking or I'm not thinking about it, I naturally just do that. So it's llegamos. Repeat, everyone. Llegamos. That means we arrive. Good. We arrive. It's okay if your audio is muted, but I still want you guys to practice it. Andrew, even though we can't hear you, go ahead and practice it on your own and type in the answer when I call on you, Andy, okay? So they buy. Tammy, they buy.
Compran.
Compran. Good. Now, one thing about this, you got to be careful. Uh-oh. Did I have the wrong answer in there? You're right, it should be compran, but let me point something else. This is the other reason I wanted to talk about this. Let's talk about accents, stressing words in Spanish. In Spanish, when a word ends in an R, the natural stress goes on the last syllable. So all of these words right here, all of the infinitives, the stress is going to go at the end of the word. So I don't say contestar, I say contestar. Practice that. Contestar. Say it. Good. Now say llegar. Say comprar. Say limpiar. So do you hear how I'm putting the stress at the end of the word? I think you do. Now, when you conjugate a word, the rule changes, because the rule in Spanish, and it's really a beautiful rule. I'll post a video later this week or next week maybe that explains it. But here's, in a nutshell, here it is. If a word ends in any of these, letters, a vowel or an N or an S, if a word ends, it doesn't have to be a verb, any word in the Spanish language. If it ends in a vowel, so there's 5 vowels, or an N or an S, which, by the way, is about 90% of the words in Spanish, end in a vowel, an N, or an S, because most words end in vowels, and some words, like conjugated verbs, end in N or S, and plural words end in S, right? So if it ends in one of those 7 letters, then the natural stress goes on the second to last syllable, and vowels always carry syllables. So the second to last syllable is this U right here. So you say ayudo. The second to last syllable is the U here. Ayudas. Ayuda. Second to last syllable is the U. Ayudamos. Do you hear how I say ayudamos? Ayudamos. I didn't say ayudamos. I said ayudamos. You put the stress on the second to last syllable. Now, what happens when there's an accent mark on the word? Well, when there's an accent mark on the word, that's telling you don't follow the natural stress. In other words, it's trumping the rule. So if you see an accent mark on a word, that means stress that letter instead of the natural stress letter. So this word is not ayudais, it's ayudais. By the way, the AI right here is 1 syllable. This is ayudais. Ayudais. Sometimes if 2 vowels are next to each other, they make 1 syllable. Sometimes they make 2 syllables, and you just have to practice to get the hang of it. I can teach you some crazy rules, but I'm just going to tell you that when we come across it, I'll just point them out to you. So the natural stress here goes on the U because it ends in an N. Remember, if a word ends in an N or an S or a vowel, the natural stress goes on the second to last syllable. So look at these words. You say como, second to last syllable. Comes, come, comemos, comais. See how that accent mark trumps the rule. It does end in an S, so if there wasn't an accent mark there, the stress would go on this O right here because it's the second to last syllable. But it has an accent mark which trumps that rule. Do you understand, everybody?
Yep.
I know you do, Johnny, because I've talked to you before. I mean, I hope you do. Brian, did you get it? Tammy, Andy? Good? All right. That was kind of a tricky lesson. I just taught you in a couple minutes a pretty powerful lesson, because now as you go through spell and you go through learning the different things, now you know why some words have accent marks and some don't. Now you can maybe understand a little bit more of why that happens. All right? So let's keep practicing with these different things, and let's work on the pronunciation. Contesto, contestamos. I'm sorry, llegamos. I did what you did, Johnny. This should be compran, not compras. I don't know if I had that wrong in the video or not. I'll have to change it. You clean would be, Brian, what would you clean be? Like tú, what would it be?
Limpias.
Very good. Tú limpias. I must have changed this after the video because I'm pretty sure those mistakes weren't in the video. She cooks. Andy, type it in. What is she cooks? Good. Cocina. Or, by the way, you can say ella cocina. E-L-L-A, which means she. You could say ella cocina or just cocina. How about he hurts? I'm sorry, he cuts. He cuts. Johnny, he cuts.
Corta.
Good.
Corta.
Good job. See how Johnny caught himself? He said corta. That actually is a totally different word because he put the stress at the end. It would have an accent mark on the A, which is a different word. This word is just corta. Corta. Repeat. Corta. Good. Tammy, how do you say I dance? Yo.
Bailo.
Bailo. Good. That's not a double L. That's a single L. So it's an L sound. Bailo. Repeat. Bailo. Now that A.
Bailo.
Good. The A and the I is one syllable. The A and the I is one syllable. All right. How about Brian? How do you say we decide? This is a tricky one.
Decidamos.
Careful, you put an A in there. Just take the R off and put an L.
Decidamos.
You're putting another A in there. Decidimos. Let's all practice that. Let's look at how I'm doing this. Decidimos. Decidimos. Say it. Decidimos.
Decidimos.
Good. Decidimos. Practice that on your own at home as well. Decidimos. I'm going to put in Speller, in Quizlet, I'm going to put some sample sentences like this on there so you guys can just practice. You don't have to do Speller for that, but you should go through the cards and practice repeating after the person that's speaking it, because that's really important that you say that correctly. Decidimos. Every time you see an E, it's E. Every time you see an I, it's E. Every time you see an O, it's O. When you see an A, it's A. So A, E, I, O, U are A, E, O, U. And it almost always is pronounced as opposed to English. Look at the word Colorado, the state Colorado. Ka, la, ra, do. There's 3 different sounds, vowel sounds. The only 2 that are the same, ka, la, ra. Ka and ra have the same sound, but they're different vowels. One's an O and one's an A. English is very messed up. You don't know how to pronounce a word until you hear someone else pronounce it, and so it's very hard to learn it. But in Spanish, very simple. Colorado. Colorado. fact, that is a Spanish word. Colorado means colored. Colorado, colorar means to color. And so Colorado means colored. And it's named that because the Colorado River had a red color. It was a reddish color to it. So they called it Colorado, the river itself. And I think the state was named after the river. All right, they describe. Describir is to describe. How do you say they describe, Andy? How do you say they describe? Andy, go ahead and answer, not private, not just to me. Answer to everybody, if you can do that. Good. Describen. Describen. So we drink. Johnny, how do you say we drink?
Nosotros bebemos.
Very good. Nosotros bebemos, or just bebemos. Bebemos means we drink. Just like nosotros bebemos means we drink. You don't have to say nosotros. You can, but you don't have to. Billy and I eat. How do you say Billy and I eat? Okay? One of you has to turn off your. I just gave it to you. One of you has to turn off your microphone there. Otherwise, you'll get that feedback. I think that's what's happening. Yeah, you're good now. Tammy, you want to speak into Brian's mic or tell him what to say? How do you say?
Comimos?
Close.
Is it comimos?
Comimos is with an I. You said comimos.
Comemos?
Very good. Comemos. Comemos. Repeat. Comemos. Everyone. Comemos. Okay? You enter. Brian, how do you say you enter?
Entras.
Good. Be careful. You're putting the stress at the end there. It's not entras. It's entras. Can you hear the difference?
Entras.
Entras. Entras la casa en la mañana. You enter the house in the morning. Entras la casa en la mañana. Or I could say, tú entras la casa en la mañana. Good job. Andy, how do you say he finishes? Turn it into so everyone can see your answer, because right now you're only showing me, Andy. It's private, I think, only to me. Can you change the setting? There you go. Termina. He finishes. Termina. Él termina. Él is the word for he with an accent on the E. Él termina. Good. Bob and John help. Johnny, how do you say Bob and John help? Bob and John what?
Bob y John ayudan.
Good. Say it correctly, though. How do you say it correctly?
Ayudan.
Very good. Ayudan. That's right. Ayudan. Bobby, John, ayudan. I already tapped the next one. The girls jump. Las chicas saltan. Las chicas saltan. Tammy, say the boys and I learn. Los chicos y yo. You're getting these tough ones.
Say
Aprendimos?
You did it again. You wanted to
Aprendemos.
Aprendemos. Good. All you do is take the R off and put an MOS on. Aprender becomes aprendemos. Do you hear it? Aprendemos. Escuchar would be escuchamos. Buscar would be buscamos. Necesitar would be necesitamos. Abrir would be abrimos. Do you hear it? Leer would be leemos. Vivir would be vivimos. All right, did y'all hear that? So aprendemos. Everyone say that. Aprendemos. Aprendemos. Good. I listen. How do you say I listen, Brian? Yo
es choro.
Careful.
Chucharo.
Nope, you're adding an extra syllable. Take off the AR and put an O.
Es chuchuro. Chuchu.
Escucho. Sound it out right. Escucho. Escucho.
Escucho.
Escucho. Everyone say it to yourself or out loud. Escucho. Escucho. Let's take escuchar and conjugate that. Ready? Look at my, I'll go back to these so you can see me. Can you see me now? Escucho. Escuchas. Escucha. Escuchamos. Escuchan. I'll skip escucháis. We don't have to worry about that. So I'll skip the second person plural. Again, escucho, escuchas, escucha, escuchamos, escuchan, they. Actually, it could be you or they. And you will see I'm doing more than one finger. You all or they. Escuchan. Let's do that with bailar. Bailo, bailas, baila, bailamos, bailan. Let's try it with terminar, to end. Terminar. Termino, terminas, termina, terminamos, terminan. Let's try it with, let's do the, I'm going to turn off my sharing button so that the video will show me doing this, because I'm just realizing that I don't think the video is going to show me. Let's try with, let's see. Did I do practicar yet? Let's do practicar. That's a long word. Practico. See, I'm putting the stress on the second to last syllable. Practico, practicas, practica, practicamos, practican. Again, you all practice or they practice. It could be anything. Like they, I'm pointing to people, other people, or I'm pointing at you. You all practice. Let's try it with cantar. Canto, cantas, canta, cantamos, cantan. You all or they sing. Let's try it with leer. Now this is an ER verb, so it's going to not say as, it's going to say es, a. There's an E at the end. But it's still leo, leyes, lee, leemos, leen. Let's do another ER verb. Comer. Como, comes, come, comemos, comen. Let's do limpiar. Back to an AR verb. Limpio, limpias, limpia, limpiamos, limpian. Try it with an IR verb. Decidir. Decido, decides, with an ES, decides, decide, decidimos, deciden. All right? That's how those work. That's how you conjugate verbs. So here's what's going to happen. The more you practice it, it's hard at first. I understand. Like I think I've told you the story before. When I first learned Spanish, I took 4 years in high school, 3 in college, took 2 years off because I was doing math. I went to Argentina for 3 months by myself, no English speakers with me. I went there, and in about 2 or 3 weeks, all of a sudden, all these words that I had learned, all these rules, the conjugation charts, they all went out the window. I didn't use them at all, but I did use them, but I didn't think about them because it just came natural. I started to hear what sounded right. So what I do with my kids at school is all year long, I'm having them practice, repeating after me. When I say escuchas, you say escucho. Escuchas bien? Do you hear me well? Do you listen well? Sí, escucho bien. When I say bebes, you say bebo. ¿Bebes el agua? Are you drinking water? Sí, bebo el agua. When I say practicas, you say practico. ¿Practicas el español? Sí, practico el español. And you start to hear what sounds right the more you practice it and the more you do it. Does that make sense? All right, the last thing I'm going to do is show you a great website that you can use. I'll put the link up on my site, but let me just show it to you right here and demonstrate it for you for a second. And the website is let's see, classzone.com. I'll put a simpler link up for you guys so it's not as hard to get to. You may have to do this, so I'll just show you. We're going to do world languages, middle school, high school, doesn't really matter. Illinois, go find your book. We'll get Avancemos 1, get the Avancemos 1 book, and we're going to go to Conjugamos, right here. Hey, what does Conjugamos sound like? Who are they talking about? If it ends in MOS, who are they talking about? They're talking about us. We conjugate. So that's really a command. It's saying, let's conjugate. So here's how Conjugamos works. You click on Avancemos Uno. You go find your verb. Notice you got to go to a certain lesson. So you kind of have to know what lesson you're in. The only verbs that you can practice in lesson 1 is ser, which I haven't even taught you yet. So let's go to, if you go to cumulative, you'll see a lot more verbs. See all those verbs there? So you hold down your control key, I think. I'm on a Mac, so I think it's command. You hold down command and you click on whatever verbs you want to practice, whatever verbs you think you know how to conjugate. So skip the ones that you don't recognize. Llegar, mirar, necesitar, pasar, practicar, tocar, tomar, trabajar, usar. Click on those and then click over here, all but vosotros. And the only tenses that they're giving you are present tense. Okay, so that's how you set it up. And then you go up here and you click start, and it's going to give you how much time. I think 5 minutes is the default. Click start, and it's going to tell you the tense, which is always present, the pronoun and the verb, and then you have to conjugate. Descansamos. So let's do this together. Ready? Tell me what to type in. Descansamos. Go. Andy, tell me what to type in. To and llegar. To what? It's not llega. It's because it's to. It's llegas. Right? Descansar. Tammy, tell me what to. How do you say you rest? To Oh, you don't know that word, but it means rest. Descansas. Very good. Tu descansas. Johnny, yo estudi what?
Studio.
Good. Yo estudio. Brian, yo what for practice?
Practico.
Practico. Good. That C is a hard C. It sounds like a K. Good. Andy, ustedes is the third person plural form, by the way. So if you don't want to include that one, you can just click only on the forms that you want to use. I always choose all but vosotros, but I just realized you guys don't really know ustedes yet. But this would be you all. This would be the same as ellos. You use the same form as ellos. Not nosotros, ellos. Ustedes, it would be andan. Got it, Andy? Andan. Pasar. Brian, tell me how do you say you pass. To what?
The stars.
Remember, take off the AR before you add the ending. To pasas. Good. Put the right. You're saying pasas. It's not pasas. It's pasas. Stress goes on the second to last syllable. Right. To pasas. Contestar. Tammy, how do you say you all answer? Third person plural, like ellos. Same as ellos.
Contestan.
Good. Contestan. Good. Johnny, he talks. How do you say he talks?
Hablo or habla. Sorry.
Good. Hablo would be I talk. Habla would be he talks. Andy, I guess you get andar. Andar means to walk. Andy, how do you say you walk? To. You're doing the plural now. Good. Andas. Tú andas. Good. Tú andas. Alquilar means to fix. That's not a word we know yet. But it's the same thing. See, it doesn't matter if you know it or not. You know the pattern, so you can still conjugate it. Andar would be ando. Ustedes pasan. You all walk or pass. Sorry. Ellas usan. They, referring to a bunch of girls, they use. Nosotros estudiamos. Nosotros compramos. Ustedes alquilamos. Alquilan. Alquilan. Ellas hablan. Ella trabaja. Try to get it before I type it in your head. Nosotros practicamos. And this is good because yo miro. Because what happens, see how I'm pronouncing it every time? When you're doing this, what it's doing is it's ingraining what sounds right in your head. So when you know what's right, repeat it. Yo miro. Even say it again. Yo miro. Yo miro. Yo miro. I watch. Yo llego. I arrive. Yo llego. Ustedes practican. Ustedes practican. See, when I hit, this is a good way to practice it. Do it once, and when you know it's correct, say it one or two more times for more practice. Tú miras. Tú miras. You look. Ellas practican. Ellos tocan. They play. Ellos tocan. Yo descanso. Yo descanso. I rest. Usted trabaja. You, sir. Usted is you, sir. Usted, you, sir, trabaja. Usted uses the same form as he or she. It's third person. Even though you're talking to someone, you're talking to them in a formal way. You're being polite. And so it's kind of like if you walked into a king, you wouldn't say, "How you doing, king?" You would say, "How is His Majesty?" I'm using third person. How is the king? Even though I'm talking to him, I'm using respect. It's as if I'm looking at the floor, not in his face, because I couldn't dare look in his eyes. And so you're speaking to somebody, but you're addressing them as if they were a third person. That's what usted is. Does that make sense? And ustedes is the plural for that. Ustedes is you all, and it's plural. And in Spain, if they use vosotros, they only use ustedes when they're trying to be formal. But everywhere else, Mexico and other parts of Spain that don't use vosotros, if they're speaking to someone formally or informally, they always use ustedes when it's plural. So ustedes is not only formal in Mexico, it's also informal. And it means you all, but it's the third person plural conjugation. So it's usted trabaja, that's singular. If it said ustedes, it would be ustedes trabajan. So I just taught you the pronoun stuff. I'll teach it more formally later. Tú alquilas. Notice how I pronounce that, alquilas. Él necesita. Él necesita. He needs. Ellas toman. Ellas toman. See how I'm practicing saying it? Nosotros tocamos. Nosotros tocamos. All right? And so you can do this for however long you want. You don't have to do it for 5 minutes. You can. You can do it for 1 minute, 2 minutes. You can do it just for a couple verbs. If you want to you could do it just for maybe 2 or 3 verbs at a time. You could choose only the verbs, only the pronouns that you want. Hold down the command or the control key and choose only the pronouns that you want. I think you can do that. It's not working for me anymore like that. Yeah, I guess it doesn't work for the pronouns to hold down the control of the Apple. I guess you can only select one of them. So I suggest using all but vosotros and just deal with usted and ustedes. All right? Boy, that was a lot. Hope you learned a lot. I will post this recording. Go back and watch it. And feel free to ask some questions. but just keep practicing your conjugating verbs.